Cognitive dissonance, a closer look. What is cognitive dissonance? Cognitive dissonance is described by Leon Festinger, the American social psychologist who originated the theory of cognitive dissonance, as a state of tension that occurs when an individual simultaneously holds two cognitions, which may come in the form of ideas, attitudes, beliefs, or opinions that are psychologically inconsistent. Dissonance in all forms makes us uncomfortable. Cognitive dissonance is especially unpleasant because it threatens our need for self-justification. We, as humans, don't like being wrong, and our desire to feel like our actions are justified causes us to make attempts at reducing cognitive dissonance. To do this, we might change one or both cognitions in order to make them more similar, or we may add new ideas that bridge the gap between the original cognitions and make them more cohesive with one another. Someone who smokes cigarettes feels a great deal of cognitive dissonance. There are multitudes of evidence and information about the dangers of smoking. PSAs are made about how horrible smoking cigarettes are for our health. Cigarette boxes even have warnings printed onto them about their effects. How do smokers reduce the dissonance between their opposing cognitions of I am a smoker and smoking kills? Smokers know that smoking is unhealthy, but still do it. In an attempt to reduce the dissonance between the two cognitions, smokers will either change their action or change their belief. Changing their action means the smoker quits smoking. Their cognitions would then be smoking is unhealthy and I don't smoke cigarettes, which makes sense with one another. Changing their beliefs means the smoker would tell themselves the research on smoking is non-conclusive. This belief would justify why a smoker would continue their bad habit. When asked why they still smoke if it's so incredibly unhealthy for them, the smoker will give a new cognition to justify their actions, like, the research on smoking is non-conclusive, or smoking helps me calm down and de-stress. Some cognitions are more effective than others. It is more difficult to counter-argue a smoker that believes smoking increases concentration or is too enjoyable to give up, when compared to counter-arguing a risk-minimizing belief, such as the medical evidence that smoking is harmful is over-exaggerated, or your genetic makeup can allow you to smoke without it giving you health problems. Attempts to reduce cognitive dissonance cause us to stick to our beliefs no matter what we learn or know about the subject. This kind of situation is demonstrated by a study conducted by Charles Lord, Lee Ross, and Mark Lepper. This study took two groups of Stanford University students. One group was against capital punishment, while the other was pro-capital punishment. These two groups were shown two research articles discussing whether or not capital punishment, like the death penalty, deters violent crimes. But instead of bringing the two groups closer together, having now thoroughly learned about not only their own beliefs, but also the opposing belief, they were driven further apart. The two groups were now even more dedicated to their original belief and are more intensely opposed to the other one. This study can help show why political discourse is so divided. Even though there's ample research done on both sides, people only want to believe their original opinion and ignore or even discredit the information that opposes that opinion. The members of the Heaven's Gate cult shared the belief that extraterrestrial beings were coming to Earth to retrieve their spirits and bring them to the kingdom of heaven, resulting in 39 of the members' deaths. Like most cults, the members of Heaven's Gate were isolated from their families and friends, basically anyone from their lives who could interfere with the cult leader's desires and teachings. The members dedicated their lives to the leaders of Heaven's Gate. They believed in them fully, even when faced with opposing real-world evidence. Before the mass suicide had occurred, a few Heaven's Gate members had purchased a high-quality telescope so that they could find the spaceship coming to retrieve their spirits that just so happened to be following a real comet quickly approaching Earth. A few days later, the members brought the telescope back, asking for a refund, because they could find the comet, but not the spaceship. Instead of questioning their leader, the cult members chose to believe that they had bought a defective telescope. In order to reduce the dissonance between their cognitions of "I believe the Heaven's Gate leaders" and "I didn't see the spaceship they told me is coming," the members of Heaven's Gate came up with a new cognition to bridge the gap and make both statements true. I was sold a faulty telescope. That's why I didn't see the spaceship, and I can still believe my leaders. We make decisions on a daily basis. When the options are very similar to one another, we feel dissonance because both options are appealing to us. Say you're making the decision on what kind of new car to buy, a gas-powered car or an all-electric car. Before making your decision, you'll most likely do research on both types of car, making a pros and cons list of both. Maybe you'll go out and test drive different vehicles to see which one you prefer. You can even talk to the people you know about their cars, what they like or dislike about them. All of these actions are trying to ensure that you make the best decision. In this situation, you decide to purchase an electric car. Now that the decision is final, you're working hard to justify your choice, so you feel no regret or discomfort. You will no longer research other cars. You'll only talk about cars with owners of an electric car like yours. You will focus on the positives of having an electric car and how it's better than other cars, while ignoring potential negatives about your own car. This behavior helps to reduce the dissonance someone feels when they think they've made the wrong decision, especially when they've invested so much money into that decision. Cognitive dissonance is a universal, uncomfortable feeling. Our brains are working on overdrive every day, trying to reduce dissonance and distress.